Welcome back to another Railpack video. Today we'll be following Job 52, or the Hennepin Job as it's known, on the Minnesota Commercial Railway. This footage was shot in March of 2023, and until just recently, the Hennepin Job stood out on the Minnesota Commercial as almost always having an ALCO or MLW locomotive assigned to it. Often MNNR 316, one of two surviving ALCO RS-27s, would rotate on the job with MNNR 83, a former CPRail RS-18u. The Minnesota Commercial Railway operates around 150 miles of trackage in and around the Twin Cities. Job 52 is responsible for servicing industries on the Hennepin Avenue line, but also Lube Tech, located on a stub of the former Northern Pacific, and the transload facility located off the Belt Line at Broadway Avenue. After crossing Broadway Avenue, Job 52 gets to work switching out their train. The crew is usually responsible for blocking their own train, putting the cars in the correct order for servicing customers throughout the day. The preferred spot for switching is usually the storage tracks just north of Broadway. While we watch the crew switching, it's important to note that this is a bit of a bittersweet video. Due to management changes at the Minnesota Commercial, all ALCO 251 powered locomotives were permanently sidelined by late summer 2023, with RS-23 MNNR number 80 being the last removed from service. Meaning, this is one of the last times that an ALCO powered locomotive would serve on Job 52, with number 83 being pulled from service in late spring. After having run around the switched-out cars, the crew peels off a single tank car for lube tech. After grabbing the tank for lube tech, the crew will shift back about a mile to Belt Line Crossing, where they will access the former NP line. Lube Tech is located at the end of a stubbed portion of the former Northern Pacific. South of Lube Tech is a bike trail. This is the former Northern Pacific Scally line that ran from the Twin Cities up to Duluth, Minnesota. North of Belt Line Crossing, the Minnesota Commercial operates the line as far as Hugo, Minnesota to service customers. Many times, rail customers require that certain cars be spotted at specific locations depending on what commodities they're carrying and how they must be loaded or unloaded. Lube Tech is no exception. We'll watch now as the crew switches out the pulls and spots in a way that keeps the cars in the specific order the customer has requested for the respot. These extra moves can sometimes be time-consuming for the crew, but are necessary to keep the customer happy. After respotting Lube Tech, the crew heads back with a single customer pull. Having collected the rest of their train, the next task of the day for Job 52 is to spot the transload facility located just off Broadway Avenue and Highway 280. The transload here handles primarily steel coils and lumber products. Number 83 puts on a good show switching the heavy cars. Finished with the transload, the crew departs heading to service Hawkins Chemical and Viking Materials, located on the Hennepin Avenue line. As the train passes under the Larpenteur Avenue overpass, the engineer gives us the old 251 salute. With the smoke and distinctive exhaust sound of these ALCOs and MLWs, it's easy to see why so many rail fans love them. Both Hawkins Chemical and Viking Materials are located just at the beginning of the Hennepin line. Although Job 52 does frequently travel to the very end of the line to service Interplastics Corporation, there were no cars on the train for them today. The spur for Hawkins is located right at the grade crossing on 33rd Avenue Southeast, which is a busy industrial street. Although collisions are rare, close calls with inattentive truck drivers and other motorists happen frequently. Hawkins Chemical is a major customer on the Minnesota commercial and will often take delivery and release several cars at a time. However, just like lube tech, cars of different chemicals must be spotted at specific locations and separated for unloading, and because of this, switching can become quite involved. When finished at Hawkins, Job 52 moves on to service Viking Materials, whose spur is located at the bottom of a steep incline. This spur also crosses 33rd Avenue southeast at grade, just south of Hawkins Chemical. After pulling, Job 52 returns to the spur with the spots. Viking Materials receives inbound loads of steel coils. The steep grade and heavy cars can prove challenging to crews when spotting the inbound loads. This engineer has the air brakes set on the cars and is using the throttle on number 83, shoving on the cars to control the speed. Viking Materials being their final customer of the day, Job 52 heads off to collect the rest of their train, which was left on the Beltline main. The Minnesota Commercial's main line crosses the BNSF's St. Paul sub at a diamond known as Park Junction. They again cross the BNSF's Midway sub less than half a mile further at the St. Anthony control point. After calling the BNSF's East Hump dispatcher, which is responsible for both control points, Job 52 receives signals to proceed southbound and enter the Minnesota Commercial Yard at St. Anthony. Slowly pulling through the St. Anthony control point, the conductor on Job 52 walks ahead, lining switches on the lead into the Minnesota Commercial's yard. Number 83 began life in 1958 as Canadian Pacific 8785, a MLW RS-18. In 1987, CPRail rebuilt the unit to RS-18u specifications. This included a new chopped short hood, full electrical rewire, and an overhaul of the ALCO 251 prime mover. It was renumbered to 1837. It continued to serve CPRail until they purged the remainder of their MLW C424 and RS-18Us in 1998 and 99. 1837 was sold to the Minnesota Commercial in July 1998 and was renumbered to 83. 83 has provided faithful and reliable service on the Minnesota Commercial, proving to be a crew favorite. It was often regarded as a good pulling unit and having fantastic brakes. As number 83 pulls its train into the yard, we watch as the era of ALCO and MLW locomotives on the Minnesota Commercial comes to a close. From a business standpoint, it makes sense as the railroad has standardized on General Electric locomotives with -7 and -8 locomotives dominating the roster. It is certainly unfortunate, though, that the growl of the ALCO 251 will no longer be heard plying the rails of the Commercial. Thank you to everyone who watches the videos until the end. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel for more awesome railroad content featuring ALCOs, short lines, and other interesting operations. Comment and share the video. Of course, there is plenty of great automotive and racing content on the channel too, if that's your thing. Thank you again for watching another RailPack video on the SoCo Olds 455 channel.